Well, Remy, I suppose I'll answer your question. But I was trying to sit there and type it, and I thought I could probably do it better in a video, and it's kind of what I do anyway, so I figured I would explain it to you like this. Um, with that video, there's some things with the KI-43 that you have to understand first, is that the aircraft is so light. It's extremely light. It's probably one of the lightest fighters that you have in the entire game. And thus torque is the most important thing with that little aircraft. Torque will tell you when you're going to try and snap roll it like that. It'll also make you do pretty much anything you want to do. If you want to correct from a roll, or you want to try and get out of any kind of maneuver, you have to utilize the motor properly. And at the time, you'll notice that it had the stock skin. That was probably one of the first days I'd ran it, either the first or second day I'd flown that aircraft. And so I didn't understand that about the aircraft yet. I knew the basics of it from having fought the Brewster and things like that, but the power to weight and the sheer torque that comes off that aircraft, because it's so light, really make a big difference with that aircraft. So one of the things that you'll notice is that on the left hand side of the aircraft I was missing an elevator control surface, which is similar to the Brewster in when you go to make a turn into the direction of the missing elevator, it will actually turn tighter that way because you don't have any resistance. At the same time, if you're imagining the air flowing over the engine cowling, coming straight at you and over the wings, essentially it's coming at you and it's flowing over you and then hitting these two control surfaces back here, and then it's using them as a deal to lift. And so when you start to pitch, and with a reduction in throttle, the aircraft will want to pull to the left. And so as you destabilize this, instead of your nose being here and the wind's coming right at you, you're now like this and the wind's actually hitting you here. And as you pitch upwards, now the wind's hitting almost a much flatter surface, and you can actually destabilize the aircraft and actually cartwheel in a flip like that. Now with the way that you do to recover this is right pedal and throttle. And as you do right pedal and throttle, the aircraft in that attitude will correct. It'll rotate back to the right and the nose will drop, and so you'll correct out of this. At the time I didn't understand this about the aircraft because I was brand new in it. And so what ended up happening is, as I pitched up, I destabilized the aircraft. Now I hit the rudder to try and get the nose back down, but I kept my throttle off, and what happened is I essentially went into a flat spin up top. Now the way that I've learned to correct this is with that right pedal. You hit hard right pedal, you goose that motor about 3 or 4 times, and what you'll do is you cause the pitch of the aircraft itself around that center axis to actually rotate. And so what you do is you get the aircraft to try and cut like this. I'm trying to explain it to you, but anyway, hard right pedal will cause the aircraft to want to dip towards the right, because now you have something hitting air resistance on this right hand side in the tail, and so it's gonna cause a torsion that's gonna pull you down this way along with the torque. As you gun it, it actually kind of forces that rotation instead of a steady application of power, which gives you a steady application. What you're wanting to do is whoom, 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 and what that does is it causes the aircraft to go, and it kind of stutters down there where you're needing it to go, and then as it snaps, you're gonna apply left pedal, right pedal, left pedal, and play with it along with engine power until you get it stabilized, and then pitch up and out. And so I didn't understand at this time, so as I'm stalling, I'm trying to go through a stall procedure like I would with a Brewster. And with a Brewster, it's just application of pedal, because you don't have enough power to actually influence which way the aircraft can go. You can, but it's not as decisive as the Ki-84. It's extremely responsive to any kind of throttle input, much like a K4, except on a much lighter scale. The power, it doesn't have nearly the power that a K4 engine will, but it's still extremely lightweight, and for its size, its power plant has a lot of torque on it. And so this is not something that I understood, and it's happened a number of times, and it usually happens when I lose a control surface off the tail somewhere. And what that does is that destabilizes the airflow coming over you all the way. And as you start to pitch and do things where I'm going to intentionally stall the aircraft with the Ki-43 around 60 miles an hour, you're really getting into that mode where you can start to do these tumbles and lateral turns and things like that. going to the left, it does a lot better to the left because the torque is a bit more controllable. Because with the torque, it's wanting to pull to the right, so you can hold a lot tighter pattern to the left. To the right, it's a little bit more dicey. You have to play with it a little bit more, the pedal controls along with flaps and things like that. But I've gotten it, if you pitch up, hard right pedal, and then try to kind of level out with both notches of your filer flaps out, and then playing with your throttle, you can actually get the aircraft to come along and then spin pretty much on its axis and come back around. It's not advisable. It's something fun to do. You can surprise someone really quick but it doesn't work every time. It's a lot like, essentially it's a tail spin, but instead of going upwards, you're actually playing along a horizontal plane instead of a vertical plane. And it's something you can do, but it's not an advisable tactic. But essentially that's what happened. I didn't understand the aircraft as well as I do now. I had lost the control surface. When I went to pitch up with the reduction in throttle because I was forcing overshoots of multiple aircraft, and then the notch of flaps, what ended up happening with no throttle is it just went into a flat spin, and I wasn't able to correct it properly or within the correct amount of time. And then by the time it got down there low, task saturation with all the things I was trying to do, try to make the shot, try to do this, try to do that, I was too low to get out of it, and that's essentially the breakdown of that. But I appreciate the questions, and if you guys like this kind of stuff, I mean, Remy, obviously you're going to get a lot out of this, a lot more, and I can detail it a lot more than I could in just typing it, where you're going to get you'll get some of it, but you're not going to get all of it. And so this is a real good way to go, hey, this is what I was thinking, this is what I was doing. And so if you other guys are out there and you're watching it and you see something along those lines, I'll do the same thing for you guys. I'm not going to put this up on Facebook or YouTube, but I'll put it up here on Facebook. And so for you guys that have questions about that kind of stuff, or questions in general, that's pretty much what I'm here to do. This is what this page is for, and this is what I'm here to do. And so that was pretty much what happened, is destabilized my airflow over the wings when I pitched up. It wanted to fall laterally. I was able to control it and get it to a flat spin, but I didn't understand the airframe well enough. Huge skink running across the porch here. Anyway, didn't understand the airframe well enough to correct it, and so that's why I ended up crashing. And it happens in some of my other films. It just happens when you're doing that low, slow turn fight kind of stuff like that, and you're fighting in my kind of style down there on the deck, doing that kind of maneuvers. It's going to happen. You'll notice it a lot though with the Zeros, the Brewster, sometimes. But the KI-43 will do it a lot because that little airframe will get so slow. You can control it at 50 miles an hour. You can actually pitch up, do a spiraling turn with 2 notches of flaps and playing with your throttle, and you can actually climb at 50 miles an hour. Left-hand orbit is easier. Right-hand orbit is a little more difficult, but you can do it. And very controllable at 60 and 70 miles an hour. And 100 miles an hour, I mean, you can pretty much turn circles around anybody else that's going on around you. But that's essentially what happened in that engagement. I appreciate the question. I hope it answered your question. And anybody else out there that has a question, reference that video and take a look at it. If you're wondering about what I'm trying to explain here, just reference the video and take a look at it. That should about do it. I think that pretty much covers your question there. I'll check it. I'll check it right now. I'll look on my telephonic device here if I can read it. There was some trimmer. There was no stall horn. The KI-43 really won't give you a whole lot of stall horn. You'll notice it a lot when I'm doing the sustained turns. But once you get down around 50 miles an hour, there's just not enough airflow coming for it to really register that there is a stall approaching. As you pitch up and you're playing with it, it'll happen a lot more times. You're going off of the buffer sound, the trimmer of the aircraft versus the actual dough. Plus with music going, usually I'm not paying attention to that. I fly the aircraft enough that I'm not having to listen for the audio cues. You just see the visual cues, and that's what ends up happening with that business. But yeah, usually what happens is you get down there super slow. We're talking less than 60 miles an hour, and that's when you'll perform these little stalls down there at altitude, at very low altitudes, less than 200 feet, and the 43 is one of the few aircraft that will come out of those maneuvers at that low altitude. The Brewster usually won't do it. Some of the Zeeks may, if you can get them to stabilize right. The 43 is one of the few that will actually get down there and just hit that cushion of air, the inside ground effect that's up there, and take off and get out of it. But anyway, I'm not going to take up any more of y'all's time. Thanks for the question, Remy. Anybody else that has questions, or Remy, if you have more questions, I'll answer them just like this. Thanks.